Hey everyone. I work as a receptionist at a hotel, and I've been married to my wife, Jessica. She's 34 and works as a nurse at a hospital. We've been together for 12 years and have a 10-year-old son named Robert. For the most part, our marriage felt pretty standard, nothing fancy, just a regular life like anyone else's. But financially, things were always tight. We constantly had to juggle bills and cut corners just to get by, though somehow, we always made it work. Jessica was an amazing partner and an even better mom. She's one of the hardest working people I know, and she pulled her weight without ever complaining. That helped take some of the pressure off me. Since I wasn't earning much at the hotel, I picked up a second job at a local food hub to bring in extra money. The downside was we rarely saw each other during the week. Still, we made weekends count. Those moments became something we really treasured. Most days, Robert stayed with his grandparents while we were working. Usually, we'd pick him up around 9 p.m. and head home together. But whenever Jessica had to pull an overnight shift, Robert would just sleep over at his grandparents' place. Things were far from perfect, but our marriage had a rhythm, a mix of peace and stress. I was genuinely thankful for Jessica. She never abandoned me during hard times and always stood by me. That meant everything. Still, there were moments when it hurt that we were both missing out on our son's daily life. It felt like we were absentee parents, even if it was for the right reasons. Then everything shifted the day she came back from her friend's wedding. Things started to feel off. Now, this wasn't just any wedding, it was a full-blown, 5-day luxury event. I was invited too, but I turned it down. Work was piling up, and I figured it'd be smarter to save the money. When she got back, I immediately noticed something was different. She barely said a word. I asked if she was okay, but she snapped at me, clearly irritated, so I backed off and gave her some space to decompress. But her mood didn't improve. If anything, it got worse. She wasn't just quiet, she started being cold, distant, snappy. And no matter how gently I asked, she wouldn't tell me what was wrong. After about a week, she finally exploded right there at the dinner table. I had casually asked if she wanted to watch a movie that night, and instead of answering, she went off on me. She said she regretted marrying me. Said all her friends were living their dream lives, and meanwhile, she was stuck suffering because I wasn't doing enough as a man. She asked why we were always watching movies at home instead of going out to a theater. Then she stormed away from the table, leaving her half-eaten plate behind. I didn't say a word. Honestly, I'd been bracing for this. I knew it was coming eventually. And I couldn't even blame her for wanting more. I decided right then to start applying to new jobs, as many interviews as I could find. The next day, she didn't get home at her usual time. Said she had to work late at the hospital. Robert and I waited for her, but it got late. I tucked him into bed, and not long after, I fell asleep too. She came in around 4 a.m. I asked her to come lie down beside me and told her I'd handle the chores that day. I wrapped my arms around her waist and tried to initiate something, but she pulled away and told me not to touch her. Of course, I respected her boundaries. But the way she pushed me off, it wasn't just rejection, it felt like disgust. I tried to shake the thought and went back to sleep, pretending everything was fine. It was Sunday morning. I called her down for breakfast, and she came into the kitchen already looking irritated. I asked what was going on, and she said she wanted to buy some lingerie and that she needed my card. I didn't want to argue, so I gave it to her. But deep down, I was uncomfortable. That card had money I'd been quietly saving for Robert. I asked if she could wait until my next paycheck, maybe just hold off for a week. Instead, she threw the card back at me and called me stingy, said I was so cheap I wouldn't even get her the basics. I grabbed her wrist and apologized again and again, just trying to smooth things over. Eventually, she accepted the card, gave me a kiss on the cheek, and left. She had forgotten her phone on the table. A few minutes later, it buzzed with a bunch of notifications, looked like she was registering for some social media apps. I was about to check, but she came back inside and grabbed it before I could look. Then she left again. Later, I dropped Robert off at his grandparents'. On the way back, I got a bank alert. $1,200 had just been charged to my card. I pulled over and just sat there with my head in my hands, trying to wrap my head around how Jessica had been acting lately. I called her and asked her to come home. When she walked through the door, I asked her straight up what she bought for $1,200 and how she could blow through that kind of money when I'd been saving it for our family. She didn't really answer. She just cried and said I'd ruined her life. That I couldn't even give her the basics. That her friends were living lavish lives while she was stuck scraping by. I told her she was being unreasonable and greedy. She knew what our finances were like when we got married. I've always done everything I could to provide. I asked her what had changed so suddenly. Things were fine just a few months ago. Why was she acting like this now? She looked at me, eyes full of guilt, and finally said sorry. She explained that at the wedding, all her friends were decked out in luxury, designer clothes, expensive bags, and they made some comments that embarrassed her. They asked if her husband couldn't afford to give her anything nice. That hit her hard. I understood, and I forgave her. I reminded her that everyone lives a different life, and not everyone can keep up with that kind of lifestyle. I told her she should be proud of the woman she is, strong, independent, hardworking. We embraced, and for the first time in a long time, we were intimate. I felt hopeful again. I told myself this was just a rough patch and that every relationship has ups and downs. That's what makes it real. But then it started slipping again. Her phone kept lighting up with notifications, but the lock screen didn't show which app they were coming from. I tried to open it, but the password didn't work. I asked her for the code, told her I noticed all the buzzing. She just brushed me off and walked out of the room without saying anything. Later that night, when she was asleep, I quietly picked up her phone and tried again. Still wrong password. I was frustrated and confused. Why would she suddenly change it? Just as I put the phone back, it started buzzing again with even more messages. I couldn't sleep. My mind kept racing. In the morning, I drove her to work and then headed into my own shift. It happened to be our wedding anniversary that day. I didn't say anything on purpose. I had a surprise planned and didn't want to ruin it. After dropping her off, I rushed back home to set everything up. I hung warm lights, cleaned up the place, and started cooking her favorite dishes. Robert was staying with his grandparents for the night, so it was just going to be the two of us. I was feeling hopeful, even excited, thinking maybe this would remind her of how far we've come. Just as I finished setting the table, I heard the front door open and Jessica walked in. The second Jessica walked through the door and saw the romantic setup, her tired expression lit up with a smile. She ran over to me and wrapped her arms around me like she actually meant it. For a while, things felt good. We laughed, talked, and spent the evening enjoying each other's company. She told me she appreciated all the effort I'd put in, but then, almost immediately, she followed that up by saying that if we had more money, we could have just gone to some fancy restaurant instead. Then she started talking about one of her friends, how her husband gave her a diamond ring as an anniversary gift. I felt that sting in my chest. It was like no matter what I did, it wasn't enough. I'd poured everything I had into that night, and she still seemed dissatisfied. I sat there, pretending to smile while she talked, trying not to let her see how small I felt. Not wanting to ruin the night, I grabbed my phone and started snapping a few pictures of us. I figured at least I could save this memory, something to hold on to. But as I was about to post one, she stopped me and told me not to share them. Said everything in the background, our house, the decorations, the lighting, looked cheap. She didn't want her friends seeing that. Her words hit me like a punch. Suddenly, the flowers, the food, the candles, it all felt worthless in her eyes. I started thinking back. Jessica came from a wealthy family, but she had never been materialistic before. Or maybe she just hid it really well. She knew exactly how much I made, and for years, she never said a word about it. But now, she seemed obsessed with appearances and luxury. I couldn't figure out what had changed. She went upstairs to the bedroom and called for me a few minutes later. When I walked in, she was wearing a red lingerie set, looking unbelievably attractive. I went to kiss her, but she pulled back and asked me to take pictures of her instead. We laughed, fooled around a little, and honestly, that night ended up feeling like the best we'd had in a while. The next morning, though, reality came crashing back down. I got a call from Robert's school. He'd gotten into a fight. I dropped everything and drove straight there. His teachers told me he'd punched a classmate, so I sat down with him and asked what happened. Through clenched teeth, Robert said James had been making fun of Mom. Said she got fired from the hospital. I was stunned. James's mom worked at the same hospital as Jessica, so this wasn't some random rumor. I didn't want to believe it. I tried brushing it off as some misunderstanding. But deep inside, something told me there was more to it. Why wouldn't Jessica tell me if she'd lost her job? I went to work after that, but I couldn't focus on anything. My head was spinning. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously off with Jessica. I wasn't jumping straight to cheating, but she was definitely hiding something. Update 1. It's been a week since that happened, and honestly, it's been hell. I've been silent, trying to make sense of everything. But today, I reached a breaking point and made a decision. I'm divorcing Jessica. After Robert told me that rumor, I couldn't sleep. Night after night, I kept turning it over in my head. So this morning, I drove to the hospital. I introduced myself at the reception desk as Jessica's husband and asked to see her. The receptionist froze and exchanged a look with another woman at the counter. Then she told me Jessica no longer worked there. I asked how long it had been. She said Jessica was let go a month ago. When I pressed her for more details, she wouldn't say, but the way she looked at me told me everything I needed to know. Whatever happened, it wasn't good. I walked out of the hospital angry, confused, and hurt. If Jessica wasn't working there anymore, where was she going every day? How was she getting money? As I was about to get into my car, James's mom walked up to me and waved me down. She apologized for what James said and admitted she should have kept that kind of talk away from her kid. I nodded, told her not to worry, but then she said she had something I needed to hear. And deep down, I already knew what was coming. She told me that when Jessica returned to work after the wedding, she became obsessed with money and constantly complained about her life. At first, she assumed it was just normal venting. But it got worse. Jessica had created an adult content profile online. I went numb. She said Jessica had been caught making explicit videos and taking nude photos in the hospital storeroom. A janitor saw her, recorded some of it, and leaked the footage to the entire staff. That's how everyone found out. I stood there, stunned, trying to process what I'd just heard. I asked her which app it was, and she offered to send me the link. She said she wasn't trying to pry, but I needed to know for Robert's sake. She begged me to keep it from James, not to make the situation worse for either kid. I agreed. I walked to my car and felt physically sick. I've never felt that level of humiliation and betrayal in my life. I sat there sobbing, blaming myself. Was all this because I failed her as a husband? Because I couldn't give her the life she wanted? But I pulled myself together. I knew I had to confirm it for myself. I couldn't just take someone's word for it, not for something this devastating. On my way home, I remembered something weird. A few days earlier, I was scrolling through social media when a suggested account popped up. The profile photo showed a woman in red lingerie. Her face was hidden, but the body, the pose, even the lighting felt familiar. Her back looked just like Jessica's. When I clicked on the link, it took me to an 18+ adult content site. I assumed it was one of those random clickbait promotions and didn't think twice. But now I realize those suggestions only appear when the person is in your contacts. That had to be her. I started shaking. When I got home, I found the living room full of packages. New clothes, shoes, handbags, stuff straight out of a luxury boutique. I picked up a receipt from the couch and felt my heart stop. She'd spent $900 on a single lipstick. Jessica walked out of the room and froze when she saw me. I held up the receipt and asked her point blank where the money came from. She threw whatever she was holding on the floor and snapped at me. Told me she regretted ever marrying me. That she felt trapped living this life of poverty. That she just wanted something for herself for once, and didn't see what the big deal was. She said everything in her life was always about our son or the house. Why couldn't she spend her savings on something she actually enjoyed? I almost laughed at the way she twisted everything around, but I kept calm. I looked her in the eyes and asked again, where was the money from? She told me she'd been promoted and transferred to another medical center. That they paid her really well. I nodded, pretending to believe her, and then stepped outside for a walk. A few minutes later, I got a text from James's mom. She sent me the link to Jessica's adult content profile. I didn't even need to open it, I already knew. But curiosity and anger eventually won. The username matched the one I'd seen in my social media suggestions. It was her. I created a whole fake account, new email, knew everything, and tracked it down. The account required a $200 subscription just to view her posts. That's a lot of money for me, but I paid it. I had to know the truth. Her username was Your Personal Nurse. And once the page loaded, my hands were trembling. My mouth went dry. I nearly threw up. The photos and videos were worse than anything I imagined. And the comments, some of the most disgusting stuff I've ever read. It didn't stop there, she had even uploaded the pictures I had taken of her on our anniversary. The same night I thought we were reconnecting, she used those photos for strangers online. And just like that, 13 years of marriage crumbled. The comments on her page were disgusting. Some were so explicit I had to look away. Actually, I couldn't even look at her the same way after that. The only thing on my mind was divorce, and I knew I couldn't waste any more time. I called my brother, who works for an attorney, and asked him to help draft the divorce papers immediately. When I got home that evening, Jessica wasn't there. She left a note saying she was heading out for a night shift. The irony? She doesn't even have a job. I don't want to spell it out, but you can guess what kind of shift she's pulling now. I knew I wouldn't sleep until I confronted her, not just to talk, but to look her in the eye and let her feel the same humiliation she put me through. Update 2. It's been a while since my last update. Truthfully, I've been trying to recover from the trauma. The divorce process hasn't just been messy, it's been emotionally exhausting. The morning after that last update, I woke up to Jessica screaming at Robert. She was yelling at him to stay away from her expensive stuff. He'd apparently touched something she bought the night before, and she flew into a rage. I calmly told Robert to go to his room, then turned to her with the coldest stare I could manage. I asked her again where the money came from. She rolled her eyes and tossed her phone aside, snapping, "Are you deaf?" I laughed, not because it was funny, but because I couldn't believe the audacity. I told her, "At least I didn't lose my self-respect like you did." She looked confused, pretending not to understand. That's when I said it straight, "Go ahead and keep running your personal nurse side hustle. The divorce papers are coming." She finally got it. She knew I'd found her account. She collapsed onto the couch, looking embarrassed for the first time. But I didn't let up. I told her not to cry just because she got caught. This was her choice, nobody forced her to do it. She said she couldn't stand the way her friends and cousins humiliated her at the wedding, flaunting their designer bags and flashy lives. Living modestly made her feel like a nobody, so she chose that route to buy herself nice things. I exploded. I told her that living a simple life with dignity is better than stripping for strangers on the internet. And if she really wanted to go that path, she should have been honest. I'm not here to argue about her body, her choice. But hiding it from me? From our son? That's betrayal. I told her I knew exactly how she got fired. And because of her choices, our 10-year-old had to deal with bullies at school. All because she couldn't be satisfied with what we had. She didn't say much. Just sat there, silent. Her body language made it clear she wasn't sorry. She was just upset she'd been exposed. Then she tried bargaining. Said we could find middle ground. That I couldn't take Robert away from her. I told her there was no way I could spend the rest of my life with someone who exposed herself to the world for fast cash. She didn't care about Robert. If she did, she would have thought about how traumatizing it would be for him to find out what she's been doing. I asked her point blank if she had even considered the shame our son would face when other kids found out what his mom does. She didn't answer. Instead, she flipped the blame on me, said it was my fault too, that I didn't give her the life she wanted. I told her that was a lie. She did have a choice, and she chose to be a sex worker instead of sticking it out during tough times. Her face made me sick. I grabbed Robert, packed a bag, and we went straight to my parents' place. I'd worked extra jobs, pulled overtime, sacrificed everything for her and our son, and she still chose this path. She spat on everything I gave her. She's ungrateful, selfish, and frankly, disgusting. I could never take her back after what she's done. It's been a week now. We've been living with my parents, and Jessica hasn't even tried to call or check on Robert. The divorce papers are almost finalized, and I just want this nightmare to be over. Update 3. Hey everyone. It's finally done. I'm free of her. The divorce took longer than I expected because Jessica and her family tried to fight for full custody of Robert. They painted me out to be a broke, absent father who couldn't give his son a decent life. Her parents are wealthy, and they used that to their advantage, claiming I was unfit to raise him. I almost lost. But then I turned it around. I asked the court one simple question: was Jessica fit to be a guardian for a 10-year-old? I brought out every piece of evidence I had, to screenshots, account links, all of it. I told the judge about the adult content, her online activity, and how it was already starting to affect our son's mental health. There was no way I was letting Robert live under that kind of shadow. No way I was handing him off to Jessica's parents, either, not after how they raised her. That's what saved me. The court awarded me full custody. Robert never really had a strong bond with his mother anyway, and I made it clear she could visit him whenever she wanted, under conditions. Of course, her family blamed me for all of this. Said Jessica only ended up like this because I couldn't provide the life she deserved. Truth is, they never wanted her to marry me in the first place. And now they're using this as ammunition to shame me all over again. But honestly, the joke's on them. Let them talk. I don't care anymore. Right now, I'm just grateful. I have peace. I have my son. That's all that matters. Sure, I lost a lot of money and time going through all this, but it was worth it to protect my son's future and get my life back. As for Jessica, I heard she's still active on that same adult site, still selling herself to strangers for money. Thank God I didn't forgive her. Thank God I walked away.